Welcome to episode 24 of The Player and the Journalist with Karson Harris and David Vick. In this episode, we will share our thoughts on the first two rounds of the NCAA Tournament and look ahead as only 8 teams remain. Karson Harris, how are we doing today in the middle of May?
We are doing good. I can't believe it's the middle of May. This 2023 has flown by, I feel like, but we're doing good.
I'll just give you a piece of advice, Karson, even though I think we're the same age. As you get older, the years go by faster, I think. So.
That might be true because PT school is going a lot faster than undergrad ever did. So
awesome. Well, before we get into lacrosse, we have one major order of business to discuss. Okay, Karson Harris, a la Miss Swiftie over here, spent her weekend at a Taylor Swift concert in Philly. Karson, please give us all the details.
It was amazing. I know. I apologize. I actually hadn't lost my voice yesterday, but it feels like it's going right now. So I apologize if it sounds weird. But she's amazing. I just think she didn't take a single break for 3.5 hours. And honestly, the coolest part to me was she was by herself on the stage for, I would say, like 60 to 70% of it. And it didn't even seem like it. Like how one person like that can encapsulate like a 70,000 person crowd and have like all of them like right in the palm of her hand, I thought was amazing. So I love being one of the 70,000. I was right there with everybody else. So it was amazing.
What was your favorite song that she sang?
Oh, so my favorite song ever, I think, is Enchanted
Okay.
by her. And it's also like my best friend Sammy's favorite song. And so she started playing it and both of us just bawled. Like we were both just crying our eyes out at it. It was so funny. The video I have is so funny of it. But it was so that was probably my favorite that she played.
Okay. So did she play like a variety of songs from when she first started to now, or was it
okay? Yeah, it's the Eras tour, David. So everybody gets like all albums except for debut doesn't get any, but she like hits every single album.
Okay, nice.
Really cool.
I guess it makes sense now that's why it's called the Eras tour. Okay.
Yeah, because it's all her eras. Because she like changes her vibe every single like album, which is why it was so funny. We were bawling at the song about her grandma. She was a song about her grandma, and so we were bawling our eyes out. And then the next song was like this super hype, like pumped revenge song, and we were screaming. I was like, the differences right now in the songs are really throwing me for a loop.
That must have been about Harry Styles or one of her millions of exes. Who knows? So.
No, I don't remember. No, I think that one was about Kanye, actually, the whole drama with Kanye.
Oh, really? Okay.
Album. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Awesome. So now that we have that out of the way, we can get into our first topic, which is round one. I will just start off by saying I thought it was a very uneventful round one. It was not very exciting, in my opinion. There wasn't a whole lot going on. There were only 2 games decided by 3 goals or less. So not the best round one, but we'll get to round 2 later, which was amazing. But thoughts on round 1?
I agree. I think at last podcast I had mentioned that I think the top 15 teams were easy to rank. And then after that everybody could kind of just like be a mosh pit of teams. And I think that kind of showed in round 1 is that there are like an elite level of 16 teams or something that are pretty dominant. And then everyone else is like still a very impressive team, but just not quite on that same caliber of play. And I think that showed with like the fact that we only had one like quote unquote upset in that round. Because like in March Madness, there's so many, right? And I think that's just because there's such a variety in teams. Whereas like in this, I think there is like a top 15 that showed and proved themselves.
Well, hey, in our sports defense, it used to be a top like 3 or 4. So we're growing.
I agree. Okay. I mean, even like the last couple of years have been a top 3 or 4. So I love that. I think that like the next round coming up on Thursday is going to be insane, which hasn't been true recently. So I agree.
For sure. So I know we're going to talk about the UAlbany game. I have 2 games before that surprised me. So Hopkins dominated UMass 19-8. I thought that was going to be a good game. Obviously, Hopkins has been a little inconsistent at times, and when they've been good, they've been really good, and they were really good against UMass. But so that caught me off guard. And then the other game that caught me off guard was Richmond dominating Marquette. Marquette went up 1-0 into that game. And they lost, I think by 10, at least 10. I mean, they got smacked. Mm-hmm. So that was surprising to me.
My like last comment for this was, Sorry, David, that you lost Marquette. I was going to apologize for it because I was checking up on them. And then I do think the Hopkins game is surprising. UMass has been like pretty good and a very good team in years past as well. But I was just looking at their box score because I didn't get a chance to watch that game very well. And it was 7-1 in the first quarter. So I think that that's like detrimental to a team, especially in play like this where it's you win or go home, because I think that's really easy to kind of get in your head about it and spiral as the game goes on. So I think Hopkins they did seem to play pretty consistent throughout that game, but to have a quarter, like an opening quarter like that and a win or go home sort of situation, I think was big for them probably in that game, would be my guess.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned about watching the game. So there were a ton of games. I will admit I could not watch every single game in its entirety because I don't think anyone could. There were so many going on at once. So I watched as much as I could, but I'm not going to sit up here and say I watched every single game. So if I say something that someone disagrees with, we probably watched a different part of the game. Okay.
I was going to say the same thing. I did want to preface that because I was bouncing around. I was also driving. So I was driving and bouncing around. But so I was just going to say, like, obviously I didn't get the whole flow, the whole vibe of every single game. So I was picking pieces and trying to choose. So if I say something that seems like the wrong vibe, then that's just because I watched a different part. So I did want to say that too. I am with David on that one.
For sure. So the Marquette game was really interesting to me. So obviously they've had a great run this season. It was the best season in program history. They went to their first ever NCAA tournament. And watching that game, I was just waiting for them to get it going. Like they were down by a few. I was waiting and waiting. One team would score, they might score back. And I was just waiting for them to get it going, and they could never get it going in the game. So that was really surprising. Richmond played an unbelievable game, and Richmond, I think really, we'll get to that later, but I mean, they had a great second round game against UNC that they could have won. So props to Richmond on that. To hold a team with the offensive power like Marquette to single digits is very impressive. And going in, I thought Marquette was going to win. So, I mean, props to Richmond for getting it done.
I do think also, like coming from somebody who's been in their very first NCAA game in program history, like I think that there's a little bit of imposter syndrome going on at the same time. Like, you deserve to be there. You got there. But there's also part, like my very first one was against Rutgers. Like, I went 3 for 11. Like, I just don't think that your very first NCAA round game ever, like, is your best game because there's just so many emotions and you're not used to being there. And with a team like Richmond, who's got a little bit more experience, like even if Marquette was the better team, if they do have that kind of firepower, I think it's difficult, at least from my experience, to play at your very, very best in something that high and stakes that high when you've never been there before. So props to them, and hopefully they get back so they can get better.
For sure. Yeah, honestly, I thought Marquette was the better team going in, but I think Richmond is the better team now after what I saw against North Carolina. So, and one last thing on that, it kind of cracked me up. So on every athletic website, they do like a recap story for each athletic team. And the title for Richmond's win recap against Marquette was Spiders Smash Marquette for first NCAA tournament win. And I was like, that is amazing. And I'm gonna have to get some water because now my throat's going away. But I was like, just say it like it is, and they did. They smashed them. So
yeah, when we were, this is kind of completely off topic, but when we were in 4-12 my freshman year, the headlines were like, Drexel dropped by, Drexel run over by, Drexel smashed by, like literally every single game we'd be like, you're on our side. Like, can you use a nicer word, please? You're literally on our side. Like, it's Drexel writing this. It was that just gave me flashbacks. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
So no, that's good stuff.
Anecdote.
Made me laugh. So so let's move on to the UAlbany Virginia game. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I think that I hadn't even looked at UAlbany as like a quality firehouse team at all. Like, I hadn't really watched their season at all. And I only got to watch like glimpses of this game. So I don't have like a surefire thing of what happened. I have no idea really what happened in it. But I was just kind of looking over at things, and they had two people, Sarah Falk with 7 goals, and then Katie Pascal with 7 points. Like, it's really hard to overcome a team when you have two somebodies playing at that caliber of skill, I think. And I don't know, I mean, I could be wrong, so please correct me, but I do think that's really hard to overcome, especially, I mean, Sarah's 7 goals came in the second half by themselves. Like, I think it's really easy to come out in a game and it's not really easy. It's easier to come out in a game and score 7 goals in the first half, first quarter, whatever, because like there's not a lot of pressure on you yet. But in a win or lose, like an NCAA game, to score 7 goals in the second half, like when it really matters, is insane. And I think that's a lot of firepower to squash if you're Virginia, a team who kind of is like a very consistent base of a team, if that makes sense.
I cannot argue with anything you said. And so I want to preface what I'm about to say by saying I've enjoyed watching Virginia all year long. I think they're a very good team. Obviously, I love Rachel Clark. I think she could start on any team in the country. She's an amazing player. Ashlyn McGovern's career came to a close with this loss. She had a great career. And let me just they were up 10-3 in the third. They were up 7 in the second half. It wasn't the first half like one other lacrosse outlet posted on Instagram who must not have watched the game. Okay. It was 10-3 in the third quarter. Virginia was up. And I turned the game off. I thought it was over. Okay. I forget what game I was watching, but then I was exchanging messages with a player on Instagram who was watching the games, and we were talking about one game, and then she mentioned the UAlbany Virginia game. She's like, this game is close, even though it shouldn't be. And I was like, what? It's close? I already turned that one off. So I went back and turned it on, and I was like, what in the world is going on right now? So I turned it on and watched the final few minutes, probably like 5 or so minutes of the fourth quarter. And, oh, man, Virginia, they're an ACC team. You can't, no offense to the America East or UAlbany. UAlbany was on no one's radar this entire season. They did good, but they were in the America East, which, as I called preseason, the America Least. Okay, I had someone tell me that they thought UAlbany played really good, and I think that can be true. And obviously, Sarah Falk went crazy. When you have a player that can put a team on her back offensively, you can surprise some people. But for Virginia to be up 10-3 in the second half, a top 20 ACC team all season long, to blow that lead against an America East team is unacceptable in my opinion.
Sorry, go ahead.
And the only other thing I was going to say is this isn't like they played Stony Brook in the America East a few years ago. This is the current edition of the America East. Everyone thought Virginia was going to win this game, and you're up 10-3. They must have thought the game was over like I did. They must have turned it off mentally like I did. So props to UAlbany, but Virginia, they got to be thinking to themselves, how in the world did we let that game get away?
I was going to say, Taylor Swift quote, both of these things can be true, that I think Albany probably did play a good game, and then I also think Virginia probably did. They probably thought it was over. I would agree with you. I think that's probably what happened. Oh, shoot, I had something else too. Never mind. I forget.
The only other thing I would say is, so UVA's goalie situation all year long was a little intriguing to me. They started off with Ashley Vernon, and they made a change kind of midway through the season. And so their starting goalie this game, they didn't pull her at all. And I think at one point she was around 30% save percentage in the fourth quarter. And for them not to make a change and to lose, I think 16-14 it might have been. Mm-hmm. But for them to not make a goalie change is kind of mind-blowing to me, especially when you only gave up 3 goals in the first half and then the team starts going on a run. So I'm not really sure why they did not make a change in that situation. That was a little confusing to me.
I remember what I was going to say. I was going to say that I had mentioned before you mentioned that it was 10-3, that Virginia's like MO was consistency. I feel like the whole season, like they just played they were good. Like they were good. They never had like these huge like negative spells. They never had these like massive positive spells. I feel like they were just very consistent. And when the other team fell apart, there they were. Like I think that was that's at least how I have Virginia in my head. And whether it's been true every game or not, but I think that's kind of how I have them. And so I would also be willing to bet that like when this thing started to unravel and it started to fall apart, there wasn't a lot. They just didn't know how to get their ducks back in a row and help like figure it out, I think.
Yeah, and I think I agree with that. And then I also think it's the NCAA tournament. There's a lot of pressure. I mean, I think it's very easy for nerves to come into the situation. I mean,
Absolutely.
they flew across the country. They were the last team playing. It was a late night game, and that was on Denver time, which is 2 hours behind East Coast time, which is where they're. I mean, so it was a late night for them. It was late night for UAlbany as well, so no excuses. But they were up 10-3, and it didn't go their way. So
Yeah.
tough
Wow.
game to end the season on for Virginia for sure. Awesome. So now moving on to round 2, which is our second topic. We have the most to say on this. Okay. So general thoughts I have are very exciting second round, way better than the first round. We had 4 1-goal games. We had 2 2-goal games, and their only blowout was Syracuse over Johns Hopkins. Okay. I mean, there was good game after good game after good game. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think it was every team came out and played like it was their last game of the season, I think, which I don't think wasn't really what was happening in round 1. Teams played insane that I love watching Loyola play, but they looked amazing. Like even UAlbany's like continuing that and not just being like, we made it past the first round, done. Like they actually kept going. Yeah. I just think Richmond coming out and fighting again. I think every single team fought like they deserved to be there, which is what made these games so good.
You want to spotlight a game?
Sure. I'll go first. I will start with Notre Dame and Florida because I love Notre Dame. I'm not sure why, but they have a special place in my heart. And I think that there is one sole reason why they won this game. And that reason.
I can't
do you want to say it at the same time? Do you want a 3, 2, 1 and you say, do you have a word?
I have like a sentence.
Okay, well then I'll just say mine and then you can tell me if you agree.
Unless you have a player name, then I have a player name too.
No.
Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
No, okay. Mine, I think that these aren't really reflected in the stat sheet, but second chances that were given to Notre Dame on offense were pretty much unbearable to watch if I'm a Florida fan in this situation, which I was for Notre Dame, so it's okay. But I think the amount of seconds Notre Dame would shoot the ball, they'd get it back. They'd shoot the ball, they'd get it back. It hit the post, they'd get it back. Like you can't give a team like Notre Dame who has those 3-headed monsters of players 3 opportunities to score on offense and expect to win a game. I just think that was, don't get me wrong, a million things going wrong for Florida at the same time. It would bounce right back to their player or like something crazy would happen. And Florida got a green card for playing without their stick. Like stupid things were happening for Florida that are also just like you could watch and be like, this isn't going to go your way. The universe is not on your side today. But I also just think that they out-hustled. Notre Dame was everywhere that Florida wasn't. Like I just think that they out-hustled them to the very, very end with absolutely no you can't blame Resnick, that's for sure. That girl.
Oh God, she was incredible.
Good on her head. I felt bad for her. There were like multiple times where she'd make a save, they'd go down, turn it over, and it'd be right back down her throat, like multiple times during the game. And I think that's just kind of where it came from. Is like Florida's continuous turnovers, which honestly is funny because in the stat sheet they don't have ridiculous more turnovers than Notre Dame did. But I think that's where the second chances come in that allow Notre Dame to gain momentum and win that game.
So, yeah, I would like to start with Sarah Resnick. As you just mentioned, she was incredible, by far the best goalie on the field yesterday. And I feel like this kind of encapsulated her career at Florida as it unfortunately has come to a close. But way too many times she was playing absolutely incredible and just not getting enough help from her team. I mean, you can't have a goalie play the way she did yesterday, double-digit saves with the season on the line, and lose the game unless it's in the Final Four or to a potentially national championship winning team, which I don't think Notre Dame is. I think they can go to the Final Four, but I feel like this was like the story over and over for Sarah Resnick. Play great. Her team doesn't have her back. Her team doesn't do enough on the other end of the field or in between 30s to win the game. And so I feel bad for her in that regard. And I feel like she was such a great player for Florida that they really, Mandy O'Leary, I would think that she might be thinking, wow, we really let an opportunity slip here because she's going to Athletes Unlimited now. She's graduated. They're going to have another goalie come in. And I'm sure they'll have a good goalie, but Sarah Resnick was one of the best goalies in the country the last 2-3 years. And they didn't make a Final Four. And I don't know. And they didn't really win a whole lot of big games with her either. Some of those big games she didn't play well, but a lot of them she did. So I don't know. I feel bad for Sarah Resnick. But yeah, what I was going to say why Notre Dame won this game is Madison Ahern. a huge moment that absolutely was incredible. I wish they had a better shot of it based on the broadcast. They were kind of zoomed out. But Florida was down 11-15 in the fourth. They got it to 15-15. And then they won the draw, somewhat controversial when they called timeout. So Florida had the ball, and there was a sequence, and the ball got around the midfield area, and Madison Ahern was chasing the Florida player. Got one check off, ball's on the ground. Got another check off, the ball's on the ground again, and then she picked up the ball, and then Notre Dame goes on to score the game-winning goal because she got the ball back with two incredible checks. It was an incredible effort around midfield, and I love seeing plays like that because Madison Ahern, great midfielder, you don't see a lot of checks and ground balls and hustle plays getting highlights. But without that play, Florida would have had the ball, and Florida would have been the one with the last chance to win the game. So Notre Dame could have easily lost. It wasn't for Madison Ahern. Two big checks to get her team the ball by herself. Okay. And I sent her a message after the game. I was like, incredible play. That was an amazing effort. And it was just so amazing. So if you haven't seen that, go watch. It's probably around like the 15-minute 30 mark when she gets the ball for her team. Absolutely incredible.
I think that people don't get enough credit when they do things like that. I applaud you for pointing it out because I think exactly like you said, without her, then they don't go on to get that score. I did want to also point out with that, everyone always talks about the three-headed monster at Notre Dame, with Choma, Ahern, and Wallach. And I think that they stepped up. I mean, they combined for 12 goals, the three of them together. And I think they've had moments where one of them has stepped up this season or maybe two of them. But that game, all three put their heart on the line and stepped up. And I think that for them to go and make a Final Four or continue in this tournament, that's going to have to keep up. And it was cool. It was really cool to watch that.
I agree. I think that is correct. And also, what we saw from that game yesterday was just a reminder that Christine Halfpenny has a temper, okay? She is one fiery woman on that sideline, let me tell you. And also, I don't think this was an upset, okay? I saw on social media some people were calling this an upset. I don't think so. I think Florida should not have been seeded over Notre Dame to begin with, okay? So
I agree.
That's my opinion on that. So let's see. Next game we can talk about Richmond and North Carolina. I thought Richmond was incredible. I thought they had a chance to win it from start to finish. I thought if you didn't know their numbers or their rankings coming in, you would have thought Richmond was a top 10 team. I mean, they looked good. Okay. Goalie play was good. Offense was good. What let them down was their defense, minus their goalie play. Okay. What let them down was their defense, and I'll get to the negative in a second. But on the positives, they just came off a win against Marquette, the first ever NCAA tournament win, like we said. And they had the lead at the half, I believe it was. They led in the third quarter for a fact, and it was a 1-goal game with 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. They ended up losing 16-12, but a 1-goal game on the road against the mighty Goliath in North Carolina with 4 minutes to play in the fourth. Props to them. That the game was up for grabs. Okay, they didn't come down with it, and you see that a lot. A team like North Carolina usually prevails. But Richmond was in it. They have nothing to be ashamed of. I thought they played great. It was a great showing for their school. They were incredible. I was very impressed with the Spiders. And as they say, rollers. Okay, I was very impressed.
I was bummed that it ended up being 16-12 because I didn't think that was reflective of that game at all. I wish that it had stayed closer just for them and towards the end. But I went on such a roller coaster of emotions during that game for Richmond because at first I was like, oh, good for them. I'm proud of them. They're holding their own. They're doing really well. And then all the way through the third quarter, all the way through the second quarter and third quarter, I was like, wait a minute. I'm not only just proud of them, they could win this thing. It started to get those vibes of being an upset. You're sitting there in the first quarter waiting for UNC to pull ahead, waiting for them to kind of do their thing, do their UNC thing. And then they just didn't. And it never felt in that game like Richmond was chasing, which is typically what you get when somebody of a caliber of Richmond plays the caliber of UNC. And it never felt like Richmond was out of control or they were chasing. And that's kind of when the feeling that you get when there's going to be an upset is the team that should be chasing is not the one chasing. And so then the third quarter, I was like, oh my God, they're going to win this. And then the fourth quarter, I was back to being like, no, guys, no, hold on. I just think that it was with 5 minutes left. It was 13-12, like you said. And then UNC does exactly what UNC does, and they scored 3 goals in 4 minutes to make it 16 or 12. I just think that, I don't know, I was so bummed because it had all of the makings of an upset literally until the last 4 minutes when North Carolina just decided to be North Carolina and go on a 3-goal streak, which just stinks, I thought.
Well, so I just want to touch on one thing that you said. So you said that North Carolina never really got too far ahead, but they did have the lead at different points in the first half. And a few different points, I was like, they scored 2 in a row. They're up. Okay, here goes North Carolina on the run. And it seemed like there were a bunch of 2 and 3 goal bursts from both teams. And Richmond kept coming back. They kept coming back. And so that was very impressive. And that was a fun game to watch. I mean, it was a fun game to watch. That was probably one of the games of the day. And like the final score does not reflect how close the game was. So yeah, that was props to Richmond. I think defensively they failed to make adjustments, and I think that's what cost them this game. I think North Carolina kept exploiting a specific matchup in the one-on-ones, and I don't know, it just seemed like Richmond failed to make adjustments. That's my point of view on it. So I feel like defensively coaching could have been a little bit better, and who knows how that would have affected the game, but overall, good showing, good season for Richmond.
I agree. I think that sometimes we do forget that, like, the coaches also have a job. You know what I mean? You're so used to watching the players play and seeing their mistakes and their like flaws and their strengths and all of that, but you have to also remember that UNC, like, while they might have been on their heels, are also coached by Jenny Levy, who's like gonna go down in the history for women's lacrosse. It already is going down in history for women's lacrosse. And I think so I agree with you. I think that we sometimes forget that it's not just the players going head to head, but it's also like the coaches going head to head. And Jenny Levy's a tough coach to go up against.
That is true. What is your next game?
My next game can be, we'll do JMU and Maryland, because for a long time, that game was like, Karson, you said Maryland's going to be the national championships. You gave up on them. And this is what they get. Like, they're giving you, because there was whatever. I was so upset. I was like, you should have stuck with your guy, whatever. Because they looked so good. Like, they were doing so well and finding plays, making plays, like just finding this like random open person all the time that was slipping behind JMU's defense. I just think they looked really strong and they had a lot of momentum. I mean, if you look at the stats alone, like Maryland had 10 more shots, 2 more CTs, 9 more draw controls, and 4 more ground balls. Like, if you look at the stats alone, you think Maryland wins this game. And for drama purposes, what they didn't have was Isabel Peterson, who can score 7 goals and get 2 assists. And like I mentioned earlier, it's something to score 7 goals in a game. It's something else to score them in the second half and late in the game when your team, especially in this case, is down by 4. And she scored 4 of those 7 in the fourth quarter. And I think that's where Maryland they just didn't have anybody like that. They're a really good team. They have people who can play as a team, but every team needs somebody who can decide they're going to win the game and go win the game. And I think that JMU had that and Maryland didn't have that quite. So when the game started to get away from them, they just lost it. With that being said, also the person who scored the game winner, Caitlin McElwee, which I don't think I pronounced that right.
McElwain?
What'd you say?
Is it McElwain?
Maybe. MCELWEE.
Oh, never mind. McElwee? I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, scores her 6th goal of the season to put JMU on top of Maryland. 6th goal of the season as a redshirt freshman. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, she came off the field, and before she even came off the field, you could look like she was crying. I don't know if she was gassed or if she was about to cry, but she was getting emotional before she even came off the field. I'm like, whoa, now the game ain't over just yet. Okay.
I just think, like, what it shows to me is that to win an NCAA championship, like, you need your big dogs to step up. They needed Peterson to step up. But with that, also, you need every single person in between of that to also step up because – you need a goal. Who's everyone looking at? They're looking at Peterson. And now this girl comes out of nowhere, scores her 6th goal of the season. No one's looking at her. Like, no one's paying attention to her. And those are the people in big moments that teams need to win big games. And so I think like you can give a ton of credit to Peterson. She deserves it. But just a ton of credit to the team as a whole. Like Caitlin coming in and scoring is just, gives me goosebumps to think about. I'm just really happy for her and the team because I think that's really cool.
So you said that that Maryland played great, and they did. They were in control of the game for 3 quarters and the start of the 4th quarter, and maybe even halfway through the 4th quarter. I can't remember the exact time mark that JMU went on their run, but I texted you and Abby this. My first thought when Maryland lost this game in the 4th quarter is that it was so un-Maryland-like to lose a game like this. You're up, let's see, 3 or 4 in the 4th quarter, midway through the 4th quarter, and you don't get a goal the rest of the game. The other team goes on a 4-0 run. And the Maryland dynasty days are over, okay? Maryland is still going to be great. They might win the championship next year. I don't think it's going to happen because I think they're losing a lot, but they're going to win. They're still going to be competing for championships in the years to come. But the days of Maryland being the best team and winning the close games and winning the games they're not supposed to win because they played bad and they still won, those days are over. And so I'm just surprised they lost the game, to be honest. I picked them to win the game. And it's not that they lost, it's how they lost in the 4th quarter. And I think, like you said, they don't have that one alpha who can just take over the games. And I think, they were a really young team this year. They relied a lot on Corey Edmondson, who's a freshman. And there was a stretch or a key moment in the 4th quarter. They had the ball down 1, and a pass was thrown to her and she just didn't catch it. She took her eyes off it. She was moving too fast, I guess. And I'm like, man, that can't happen. If that's a junior or senior, that's not going to happen. If that's Grace Griffin, that's not going to happen. And so obviously she's only a freshman. She's already had a great season, but she'll have a great career for them. But I'm like, man, like a young team. I don't even want to say they're a young team. They had young pieces with older pieces, but I'm just like, oh man. You got to catch that ball. So, like, if you're going to lose, you got to at least get a shot off. You can't turn it over on a pass and catch. So, I'm sure she's beating herself up today yesterday. I mean, that's just like the player in the pin game who got the false start at the end. Those are tough. So, I think Maryland. I hated seeing one thing I hate about this part of the season is so many great careers come to a close, and seeing Abby Bosco crying. I mean, it is. These games are so exciting, but they're also very sad at the end because one team, they gave it everything, especially going back to a team like Richmond. I mean, they're not going to make it to the tournament every year, and so. This might be the only time certain players on the team get to make an NCAA tournament. You got a lot of teams like that. You got a lot of teams like Penn. This is the best Penn team in a number of years. Okay. And it's never guaranteed that you're going to go to the tournament. It's never guaranteed that you're going to win a tournament game. So when you win a game and you make the second game, you're like, it means that much more and it hurts that much more when you lose. So I feel for Maryland. A lot of great careers came to Hannah Lubecker. Great player for them. That's a wrap on her career. I mean, it's tough. So
especially in tight games like that, when you're winning the whole time, like you're not supposed to think about the outcome, but like you are, and especially in tight games like the Richmond game, like this Maryland game, you're playing so fast, so hard until like the very last second, until the last, even maybe in this case, like a minute left in the game, you're playing absolutely so hard, and then the whistle blows and it's over. And it's not just over until next year, it's over forever. And I think that's the feeling that people wish they could bottle up and give to freshmen. That feeling of playing so hard and then it being over, like you're in your jersey for the last time on the field for the last time. And I think that's the feeling that people wish they could bottle up and give to people younger than them, just so that they could experience it, so that they appreciate their years more, I think, because it's so weird, and especially in a game like that. Like I never ended my NCAA run on a game that was very close. So I can't even imagine people like that who are ending it after playing so fast paced and so hard. Just for it all to be over with a whistle is tough.
For sure. And the thing about endings in sports, it's very abrupt.
Yeah.
1 second, there's a second on the clock. 1 second, there's nothing on the clock. It's over. So, that was tough. Just to watch. That was literally my first thought my second thought when they lost was a lot of great careers just came to a close. So I would like to move on. I have two more games that I'd like to discuss. One being the Penn and Boston College game.
Okay.
Unlike the UAlbany Virginia game where I was really down on Virginia, I thought both of these teams played great. I thought Penn looked really good. I thought Boston College looked really good. And I would like to say Boston College, they need to play at their outdoor stadium, Newton Field, way more often. Okay, that's when Boston College got built. Okay, playing on that field, playing there in January with mounds of freaking snow surrounding the field, freezing cold. That's where they need to play. They don't need to be playing in Fish Fieldhouse. Okay, when the games are close to the public for the first 3 or 4 home games of the season, that is whack. This is one of the best teams in the country. Fans want to see them, and it's closed for the first 3 or 4 home games of the season to the public. That pisses me off. Okay. Anyways, so I love seeing them at Newton Field. I love seeing that place packed. I love seeing the neon shirts. When the neon shirts come out, you know it's a big game for Boston College. Okay, you know it's postseason. You know it's do or die, and I love seeing the neon shirts. That is one of the coolest things we have going in the sport right now as far as fan bases go. Okay. As for the game, like I said, I was impressed by both teams. I thought Penn, their second half of the season, they were a really good team. And I knew they were good. I didn't know they were this good that they could have beaten Boston College. And they were in the game. They went down by a few goals in the first half. They battled their way back. They were in the game. They had a chance to win it. I mean, they didn't lead late in the game. I'm not sure if they led at all, to be honest. But they were in the game the whole time. And props to Penn. They played really, really well.
Well, I didn't get a chance to watch this one. This was one of the ones that I sacrificed on my drive of only having one device. But I guess then you can explain to me, how like low scoring it was. Because in my impression, I was thinking that Boston College must have just not put up a very good scoring show or good offensive run. But you said they played really well. So I wanted to know your opinion on their low scoringness of the game.
Yeah, both goalies played really well. The Penn goalie had double-digit saves. Shea Dulce, I want to say, had 8 or 9. And the Penn goalie, Van Heusen, she made some big stops. I mean, she made some really good stops. I thought Penn's defense was good. Their goalie was good. So, yeah, I think there were a few shots that Boston College, they had good looks that they just missed. I know Jen Medjid had one up close that she sailed over the cage. So, I mean, I feel like that's how it is in every game. You're going to have good looks that you just don't finish.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, the Van Heusen for Penn, she had a great game in cage. She was really good.
Okay.
And the only thing I think Penn is going to look back on and think that they left a little bit on the table is there was a key stretch in the fourth quarter where they both just turned it over back to back to back to back. And I want to say Penn had 3 or 4 possessions where they turned the ball over in a row.
Oh, geez.
And I think all, if not maybe one, were in like the midfield transition area. And that was when they were down. And a lot of those came when they were down 1 goal because Cassidy or Courtney Weeks, it's hard to know who is who. I got to be honest, they look the same. They're twins. So, but one of them had the assist to her sister late in the game, which made it 9-7. And so.
Oh, it was Courtney or Cassidy, I think.
There you go. C to C, one way or the other. So, and then Penn had an opportunity late to make it a 1-goal game when they got the false start on the free position. But it's just the turn that stretch where 3 or 4 turnovers in a row. That's what really did them in. So, but it happens.
Happens. I also think it happens more frequently to somebody who is playing at Boston College or North Carolina or a Northwestern. I think it's more common to see those kind of like stupid turnovers that just happen because you're thinking too hard.
Yeah, and they had 6 total fourth quarter turnovers. But 3 or 4 of them, like I said, they were just on consecutive possessions. So they had a lot of turnovers in the first quarter, a lot of turnovers in the fourth quarter. I mean, if you look at the stats, Boston College was ahead in most of the stats, not by much, but they were ahead. But when you have a goalie playing like Van Heusen did, that's going to keep you in the game. So those are my thoughts on Penn versus Boston College.
What's your next game? Okay,
I have Northwestern and Michigan.
Okay.
This was a very odd game to watch. First off, the broadcast connection was laggy the whole time. I mean, what in the world is going on with that? Get it together, Northwestern, okay? I mean, they need to work on. I mean, seriously, it was laggy the whole time. It wasn't just me; it was you. And then I asked someone else if theirs was laggy, and she said hers was laggy too. So that ain't a coincidence, okay? The whole thing was laggy, and even the highlights Northwestern was posting on their Twitter were laggy. So they didn't even have a clean feed. So I don't know what was going on with that. I need to quiet down. It's only 11 o'clock here. People might be sleeping in my apartment complex. Okay. Anyways, so I want to point something out. Not that this, I mean, this is pretty obvious, but this was Northwestern's first tournament game since that catastrophic collapse last year in the championship game. And so I think that played a little bit of a role in how they played. I think it's impossible to go into this game and not subconsciously feel the remnants of that last game and how they just completely gave it away. And so I just wanted to throw that out. That could make them tight, that could make them nervous, but however you want to describe it. But as the game went on, so very low scoring also. Only 8 goals for Northwestern. They're the highest scoring offense in the country, okay? And so I feel like as the game went on, I think they got tight. They had a lot of offensive possessions that were just head scratchers, or like, why are you taking this shot? They had so many bad shots, just being honest, okay? Skane was 1 of 10. And she took one shot from in between the 8 and 12 meter arc in the fourth. And I'm like, what in the world? What is she doing? Like,
yeah.
And so obviously I think she was pressing, and she's not going to go 1 of 10 for the rest of this tournament. I promise you that much. That's done. That's done.
A fluke. That's over.
So Skane was 1 of 10. Madison Taylor was 0 of 7. Dylan Amonte was 1 of 5. I mean, their offense played as poor as you can play, pretty much. And they still won this game. And I mean, just bad decisions, bad shots. Going back, even at the start of the game, they were making bad decisions. They had 2 yellows and a green card in the first quarter. And one of the yellows was like, what in the world is she thinking? Like, and even the commentators were saying the same thing. They were like, that was just so unnecessary. What is she thinking? And then, like, that, I don't know. So it was frustrating to watch Northwestern yesterday because they're so much better than what they showed.
Yeah.
Michigan's goalie played really well. She did really good. So yeah, it was, hey, Northwestern came out on top. That's all that matters. But I think they should be breathing a sigh of relief that they have some. I think that Coach Monty Hiller needs to give them an off day. Honestly, I would give them an off day today, and say you need to go see the Home Alone house. Okay, go take it easy because you got to reset. I mean, if they play like that again, they're gonna lose.
Yeah. No, I think I am ecstatic that they survived and advanced. It's important for them. I think it's also important. They're lucky that they had a game like this that didn't result in a loss, because now, lesson learned, like, they've gotten those jitters out and they got to do all of that and still win the game, which not a lot of people get to do. So I think that's really good for them. I also wanted to talk about like their defense in general, because I didn't get to watch it. I don't know if it was like a standout defense, but the fact that they didn't let Michigan go on any sort of run is important, because like you said, like if somebody's going 1 for 10, 0 for 7, like when those things are happening, you're seeing a lot on the backside, and it's easy to let a turnover like that or let a missed shot turn into a goal. So I think it's really important to like highlight the fact that they didn't let them go on a run, because that's how upsets happen. If Michigan all of a sudden goes, now think about it, like Michigan's up by 5, they're already taking desperate shots. Northwestern is. If now Michigan's up by 4 or 5, those shots get even more desperate and there's no ability to climb back. So I really think that the reason that they didn't have an upset happen here is that they were able to hold them from that game of momentum kind of deal happening. And those missed shots weren't always resulting in goals. So it wasn't just like ruining their mentality during the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and they did a good job against Jill Smith defensively. She only had 2 goals and only 5 shots. And she's been one of the most electric offensive players all season long. So, I mean, their defense played great. But it's just the offense wasn't clicking. So,
yeah, that's fair.
But hey, they won. Like you said, they really did survive. They really did survive. So
surviving, not thriving.
Yeah, the last thing I will point out is that Michigan had 8 fourth quarter turnovers.
Wow.
A few of those, maybe even half, were forced turnovers. But you can't have 8 fourth quarter turnovers in an NCAA tournament game and expect to beat the favored national champion pick. Okay, you can't do that. And so I feel like, come on, Michigan. You got to they didn't give themselves a chance in the fourth quarter with those turnovers. You got to give yourself a chance.
Yeah. Kind of the similar thing to Penn, right? Like those people playing those teams, their turnovers are always higher, I think, in the fourth quarter, just because they start to be like, wait a minute, is this actually going to happen? Is this actually going to happen? And then it doesn't happen. The only other thing I wanted to briefly talk about is I don't have a ton on the Stony Brook Loyola game. I just wanted to, I remembered this while you were talking, is that I am a Katie Detweiler fan club in myself. If she has one fan, it is me. If she has none, I am dead. Because I just think that she is an absolute beast. And then she scored, and I was so happy for her. But like to hold Ellie Massera to 1 goal, that girl had 1 goal the whole game, and the sole reason for that is Katie Detweiler. And I think she should get huge credit for that win. And she does get a lot of credit, as much as a credit as a defender does get. Because the stats were like very even across the board. The teams played pretty even. And Stony Brook's a beast of a team to go up against. And I think that Loyola played with a lot of like grace, a lot of determination, and Katie Detweiler.
Yeah, she played great. I think Loyola, so Detweiler and then Jillian Wilson. She had late in the game, Stony Brook got it to a 1-goal game. The last draw of the game, she won it to herself. And I was like, that's, big time players make big time plays. And yeah, I think so this game was final score 9-8. I thought Loyola was the better team throughout. Stony Brook was trailing the whole time. Stony Brook went on a little bit of a run at the end to get it to a 1-goal game, so props to them for giving themselves a chance at the end there with the draw. And they could have easily, Charlotte Verhulst was very good at the draw. They could have easily won the draw. But I was a little mind-boggled watching Stony Brook's defense with a few minutes to go in the game, because they were down by 2, they were a player up, and they were on defense. And they did not pressure the ball until late in the shot clock. But at that point, their player up only had like 10 or 15 seconds left. They just literally sat there and let Loyola sit there with the ball. And I'm like, why are you not pressuring the ball? You're down 2. If they were down 1 with 2 minutes to go, I could understand it, because you can just let the shot clock play out, get a stop, and get the ball back and still have a good amount of time. But I think they ended up getting the ball back with 30 or 40 seconds left. I'm just like, why are you not pressuring the ball? You got to make you're down 2. You're not down 1. You got to have awareness of the game, the time, the situation. And so that was a little confusing to me. But yeah, props to Loyola. I think this is the best Loyola team maybe ever. Definitely in the past few years. They're legit. They're really good. Lauren Spinson Cage, she had a 6 save that Loyola posted on their Instagram. It was a foot save off of Ellie Massera free position. That was sick.
Yeah, I think that Northwestern better get their act together, because they aren't facing a scrub. Like Loyola's going to be a good team that they're going to have to face.
Yeah, that's true. And I think Loyola, they're going to have the edge at the draw with Jillian Wilson. I think, and I think they're going to have to win win the majority of the draws to give themselves a chance in that game. But we won't look ahead just yet. And so I guess the only other game, only other 2 games we didn't discuss were UAlbany and Denver. Denver won by 2, and then Hopkins and Syracuse. And I don't have anything to say on the Denver game, but Syracuse, I only have one thing to say. They needed that. I hope they get their confidence back, because they needed something to go. They had 25 goals is pretty sick, okay? And after how they finished the season, they needed to get some mojo back, okay? So hopefully Syracuse is back, but we'll see that in the next round.
Yeah, I agree. That's all I had pretty much on them too, is that this was kind of them getting out of their rut, and I wasn't really expecting it, to be honest. I had kind of counted them out, because I was like, well, they're on their downhill. Bye now. But they dominated the draw. They dominated Hopkins, so this could be them on their way up. We'll have to see. And then the only thing I had on Denver Albany is like their games are always close, like I said, because they can't score, but their defense is amazing. So that game went as expected, So that's why I don't
Well, I thought they were going to win by more than 2, but
yeah. Also, as soon as they went up 7-5 in the last second of the third, I was like, well, that's it. You can't score. We're not scoring 3 goals on them in the fourth quarter.
I don't know how about you. Obviously, you played, and I'm sure this happened to you a number of times, and you were on the good end, the bad end. But when you give up a goal at the end of a half or at the end of a quarter, it sucks the life out of a team. I don't want to say sucks the life out. That might be a little much, but it's a huge momentum swing. Especially for the underdog. Like, you cannot give up a goal with 2 or 3 seconds left. I can't tell you how many times this year North Carolina has scored in the final few seconds of a half or a quarter when they weren't playing that well, and that turned the tide of a game. So that frustrates me to see that happen. Got to hold strong for a few more seconds, okay?
That was like one of our goals going into, I think it was might have been my 5th year. It happened to us all the time. If there were 3 seconds on the clock, we were getting scored on, like, every single time. So we had actually one of our, like, team goals going into every game was not to get scored on in the last 5 seconds of a possession, because it happened so frequently. But yeah, no, I agree.
And it's not even just the final few seconds of a quarter. Like you said, it's the final few seconds of a possession. Like, if you hold for 85 seconds and then you give up a goal, you're like, well, that was for nothing. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So moving on to topic 3, upcoming games. 8 teams remain, as we said at the top of this joint. Okay. Also, I'm going to just point this out and make everyone happy right off the bat. All of the Elite 8 games, so there are 4 Elite 8 games for 8 teams. 4 times 2 is 8. Just some simple math there. Okay. Not a genius over here. Unless you want to call me one, it's okay. So all of the games are on ESPNU, and they're 1 at a time. One's going to end, the next one's going to start. So on Thursday, May 18th, ESPNU, I believe the first one...
12, I think.
Yeah, I think it's around 12. And then, so it's just 1, then the next, and the next, and the next. And since they are on ESPNU, what they'll probably end up doing, if a game goes way over, they'll probably start the next one on ESPN Plus or another channel. But since it's on ESPNU, there's a good chance that the start time might get pushed back 5 to 10 minutes if a game goes over, since they like to do that. So, hey, that's fine with me. 1 at a time is good with everyone else too. So
no one speaks to me from 12 to 9 p.m. Eastern time on
Thursday.
Hey,
it's going to be a long day of lacrosse. So, and so the 4 matchups: JMU Syracuse, Denver versus UNC, Boston College versus Notre Dame for the 3rd time this year, and Northwestern versus Loyola. Which game are you most looking forward to?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't really know, honestly. I think they all have their strengths for different reasons, which is such a Karson answer, I know. But if I had to pick, probably Notre Dame, BC again.
Really?
I just love Notre Dame. I don't know why.
That's at the bottom on my list.
I don't know. Well, I'm really excited for UNC Denver because I'm really excited to watch how UNC is going to handle their defense, because I think they're a powerhouse in scoring. So I'm really excited to see watch how they pick, if they can, / how they pick apart Denver's defense. I'm really excited for Syracuse JMU because it's you get to find out if Syracuse is out of their rut or not, or if that was a fluke. And then I'm really excited for Northwestern Loyola because Northwestern just had a really bad game, so it could be a really good game between Loyola. So all of them I have a reason for, and they're all different. So I don't know. I just picked Notre Dame BC because I love Notre Dame, and I think it would be a fun upset.
I think so. Yeah, I believe Notre Dame is 0-2 against them this year, but one of them was a 1-goal game that they had a chance to win.
Mm-hmm.
And then second matchup wasn't as close in the ACC tournament. The only reason I'm not I'm excited to watch it, but out of the 4 games, that's probably the one I'm least excited for, just because they've already played twice.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
So the JMU Syracuse game, I think that's a very good matchup for Syracuse, because JMU, they're not I mean, let's see, they've scored 13.6 goals per game on average this year. They're gonna have to score more than that if they're gonna beat Syracuse, okay? Mm-hmm. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if JMU came out and scored only 8 or 9. I don't know if they're going to be able to score enough against Syracuse. So I think that's a good matchup for Syracuse, since their offense is so high-powered and JMU's isn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Syracuse's offense is probably the best in the country. So I think that's a good matchup for Syracuse, and I think there's a good chance they're going to win that game.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I have in my head, we posted on Instagram, but I was thinking Northwestern, JMU, UNC, BC, Final Four was my guess. And honestly, I could see every single one of those going a different way now. Like after I was looking at these games, now after Sunday's games, I was like, I could go over 4 for my final 4. Like I'm really not sure, just because of like Northwestern, Loyola. Like I kind of already touched on it, but Syracuse, like you said, rut who? We're not in a rut. What are you talking about? So I picked JMU over Syracuse because of like their previous games, but then they promptly gave me the middle finger and scored 100 goals in a game. So I don't know. Like I literally could go over 4 just because I think that there was a lot of interesting things that happened yesterday.
I think you are absolutely correct. I think these games go either way. I think, and that's very exciting as a fan. That's going to get people to tune in. The one thing I am worried about with the BC Notre Dame game is Notre Dame has to get over the mental hurdle of can we beat BC? Okay. They've beaten BC in the regular season in the past, but they've never beaten them in the biggest of games. And this is the biggest game of Notre Dame's season. I don't think they've been to the Elite Eight in a number of years. So this is the biggest game in their program in a long time. Casey Choma, Madison Ahern. Ahern's a senior. Jackie Wolak's a senior. I can't remember Choma's a junior or senior, but like this is a big game. And this could be a career-defining game for Notre Dame if they can get the win. Because, if they go to the Final Four, that's a huge success.
Yeah. I just think if they're going to do it, this is the game that they're going to do it with because of those people that are graduating. Like, they're losing a lot next year. So if they're going to go to a Final Four, like, this is their time right here. This is their opportunity. And they know that too. So that can go one of two ways. They can either hype it up too much to where they lose because of the stress, or they hype it up enough that they leave it all out there and find ways to win. So it'll be exciting.
And I think this game, obviously, we're going to see the players on the field, but I'm very interested to see what adjustments get made in game, what approach Notre Dame has to BC and vice versa. I think this game might come down to the coaches. And obviously, I'm not going to say bet against Acacia Walker because you'd be dumb to. But Notre Dame and BC, they've played each other for years. It's been the same coach, same head coaches for years. They know each other very well. They see each other every year. I think this might come down to the coaches. And is someone going to come out with a surprising game plan? Is someone going to throw a little zone in there? You got to do something, I think, if you're Notre Dame, because I think Notre Dame is close to BC, but I think BC is the better team. I think Notre Dame, unless BC just plays bad, I think they have to do something to throw BC off. I think they have to do something. Is that the slides coming? Is that like a fake slide? It's got to be something. Do something. And so I'm very interested to see how this game goes.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially because they've played twice. Also, really, really, really hard to beat a team 3 times. That is the only thing that's one of the things Notre Dame has going for them.
That's true. So Denver, UNC. So actually, I had the same question for 3 of these games. For JMU versus Syracuse, Denver versus UNC, and Northwestern versus Loyola. Can JMU score enough to beat Syracuse? Can Denver score enough to beat UNC? And can Loyola score enough to beat Northwestern? Because Denver, like you said, all their games are low scoring. They're not going to beat North Carolina if they only score 8 goals, in my opinion. Could they hold North Carolina to 7 or less? They could, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they can hold them to 10 or less, but their offense is going to have to do something. And their offense, UAlbany's defense is not North Carolina, okay?
Yeah.
USC's defense is not North Carolina. So I'm worried that Denver might not be able to score enough. And same with Loyola. Loyola, they scored, let's see. So yeah, Denver scored 10 goals versus USC and 8 versus UAlbany. They're going to have to score. And I don't know. I don't know if they can do it.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think that they can either. And I think you can't hold a team like UNC. Like I said, they win games. That's what they do. Whether it's clean, whether it's pretty, none of those are normally, sometimes those aren't true, but they win games at the end of the day. And I think Denver, same way, undefeated. Hey, you got to give it to them. But at some point, you have to have an offense. Like you're not going to be a national champion with half a team, like half a strength, And I think UNC is going to be, I think they got that one. I do. Just because, like I said, I don't think they'll be able to score enough. Or like you said.
I think it will be low scoring, though. in the
I
grand
agree.
scheme of things. I think, and if it's low scoring, that favors Denver. So if it's high scoring,
12-8.
they don't have a chance.
My prediction is 12-8.
12-8. Okay.
I just pulled that
We'll,
right out of thin air, but that's what I got.
so yeah, we'll see. Talk about a career-defining win for Notre Dame. This would be a program-defining win for Denver if they can get to the Final Four.
Oh,
If
yeah.
they get to the Final Four for the first time ever, Liza Kelly has been there for a long time. She turned down the head coaching job at Johns Hopkins this past offseason, if you didn't know. I was told that by a very reliable source, okay? But she's been at Denver the whole time. She's built it up. And I think at some point, I don't think anyone's going to pick Denver to win this game, but that's just because they've never done it before. You got to do something before people believe that you will actually do it. So this is a game that can change the trajectory of their program. If they get to the Final Four, that's going to help their recruiting. And I think this is a huge game for Denver's program, not just for this year, but for the next five years. I think this is a huge game, and we'll see. They got to win it. You can't lose it. If you want to change the trajectory of your program and you're Denver, you have to win this game. You just have to.
Oh, I agree. I think everyone was kind of like upset that they were ranked 5th because everyone was like, they were undefeated. What are you talking about? They should be 2nd. Blah. But like, you want to prove that. I think this is your game to prove that because
for sure.
I think if they don't prove this, they'll continually be ranked 5th, 6th, 7th going into NCAA tournaments.
For sure.
If they win this game.
Yeah, you got to make people take notice.
Exactly.
So, and I kind of hate it for them because they are a really good team, and I don't want it to come down to one game for them. I mean, obviously every season comes down to one game in the tournament, but like to prove everything that they've done this year in the past year and the stuff that they built, they have to win this game. Like they literally have to win this game.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how Denver plays. And then finally, Northwestern Loyola. Loyola, I think they need to score 16 or 17 to win. I think they're going to have to score a bunch of goals because I don't think Northwestern's going to struggle like they did last game.
I was going to say, so you think that you're going into this assuming that Northwestern is Northwestern of not last game, but seasons.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was one game.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's going to be tough for Loyola. I mean, 16 or 17 goals against Loyola Liberty and that Northwestern defense, that's no easy task, but I think that's what you're going to have to do. I really do.
I mean, we talked to Izzy Skane about that team's like mindset, and it didn't seem like they're a team that harps on the past. Like it doesn't seem like they're a team that's going to go home and think about that. They're going to go and think about how to beat Loyola next. So I would agree with you. I think they're going to come out firing, and Loyola's very best bet is to hold them to low scoring in the first half. I think like race with them towards the end, but don't let them start out of the gate really hot. I feel like that's Loyola's like best chance.
For sure. And on those lines, like I said, I think they have the edge in the draw, and I think they're going to need to win most of the draw so they can control the pace of the game. Because if Northwestern gets off to a fast start, then they're playing catch up. That could get them out of their game plan a little bit, and it has to be close throughout. They need to control the pace of the game. If they don't control the pace of the game, they're not going to have a shot.
I agree with you. I think that's what it is. I think if you let them, if it's Northwestern's game, it's Northwestern's game to lose, and I don't think they'll do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think Loyola has all the pieces to win, though. They've got Jillian Wilson at the draw and on offense. They've got Detweiler on defense, and Lauren Spence in cage, very underrated. She is very good. She's going to have a good game. So I think Loyola's obviously the underdog going into this. Northwestern doesn't have to play their best game to win. Loyola does. Loyola has to win the draw. I think their goalie is going to have to – I think Lauren Spence is going to have to outplay Loyola Liberty, and I think they need to score a bunch of goals. So I think those three things. Not going to be easy to do all three, but if they do all three, I think they're going to win. But I don't think they're going to win. I think they're going to win if they do all three. Overall, I don't think they're going to win. I
agree. I mean, if Northwestern plays like they did last game, then maybe, but I'm hoping for them that's not true.
So let's wrap up with this. Can you give us your prediction for each of these games? Who wins?
All right. I'm sticking with what I picked, I think. I think I'm going Northwestern for Northwestern Loyola. Actually, no. Okay, so I picked originally JMU to win the Syracuse JMU game. I'm more 50-50 now after the Syracuse whopping. But I we'll stick with JMU. We'll stick with my gut. And then UNC for UNC Denver and Boston College for Notre Dame BC.
Okay. So yeah, I think Syracuse is gonna win. I think Northwestern is going to win. A big part of me wants to go on a ledge and pick Denver, okay? But the last time I went on a ledge and I went on the ledge and I picked Towson, they got mollywopped, okay, against Stony Brook. And I had to hear from it afterwards from some Stony Brook fans. So I'm gonna go with UNC and BC Notre Dame. I think it's like 60-40 BC. So almost a toss up. I'm gonna go with BC. I think we might have 3 ACC teams in the Final Four. I mean, we're going to have at least one between BC and Notre Dame. So,
yeah. True. I agree. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there were 3 ACC teams in it. That's not...
I hope not, to be honest, but I wouldn't be surprised.
No, me either. Not at all, but we'll see.
Awesome. Okay, who do you think if there is an upset, who is most likely to be upset? And then we'll be done.
Notre Dame. BC. BC is most likely to be upset by Notre Dame. I'm dying on that hill.
Awesome. So this episode comes out tomorrow, or when this episode comes out, we'll be a few days away from the Elite Eight. Don't have about a week and a half, not even a week and a half, like a week until the Final Four and then the national championship. So our next podcast episode, the season's going to be over.
Oh my gosh. That's so crazy.
I know. It's going by fast. Well, that's what happens when you become a boomer. You know, I'm not calling you a boomer, but we're getting there. So
I'm not a boomer yet.
Awesome. So that is a wrap on The Player and the Journalist.